The debris field around the ancient Earth vessel drifted silently through the void, another graveyard of humanity's failed exodus. Commander Vex'hai of the exploration ship Twilight Seeker had seen dozens of these wrecks before broken dreams, frozen in space for centuries. But when her crew detected a single life sign buried deep within the twisted metal, she had no idea they were about to awaken the keeper of secrets that could reshape the entire galaxy. The scanning room aboard the Twilight Seeker hummed with quiet efficiency as the Nexari crew analyzed the human derelict floating before them. Commander Vex'hai stood tall on her four legs, her crystalline carapace catching the light from the displays as she studied the readings. The Nexari were natural archivists, a species that valued knowledge above all else, spending millennia cataloging the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Commander, called out Navigation Specialist Kryth from his station, his voice resonating through the harmonic frequencies his people used for communication. The human vessel appears to be a civilian transport designation, Aurora's Dream. Our records show it launched from Earth approximately 300 years ago during their Great Evacuation. Vex'hai's multiple eyes focused on the main display. The ship was badly damaged, its hull cracked and twisted from whatever catastrophe had befallen it. Most human evacuation ships had met similar fates, their crude technology no match for the dangers of deep space travel. "Any survivors?" she asked, though she expected the usual answer. In all their years of exploration, the Nexari had never found living humans. The species had been extinct for over 2 centuries, their homeworld consumed by solar collapse. Science Officer Telara looked up from her bioscanner, her antennae twitching with surprise. "Commander, I'm detecting a single life sign, very faint, but definitely active. It appears to be in some kind of suspended animation." The bridge fell silent. Living humans were legend stories told by elder species about the chaotic, short-lived race that had burned bright and died young. To find one alive would be like discovering a living dinosaur. "Are you certain?" Vex'hai asked, moving closer. "To Telara's station. The biosignature is unmistakable," Telara confirmed. "Human, male, appears to be in cryogenic preservation. The pod is still functioning, though barely." Vex'hai made her decision quickly. The Nexari had dedicated their existence to preserving knowledge, and a living human represented the ultimate historical artifact. "Prepare a salvage team. We're bringing both the survivor and his pod aboard." "Commander," interjected security Chief Mordak, his deep voice carrying a note of concern. "Our historical records indicate humans were unpredictable. Perhaps we should proceed with caution. A single human, weakened by centuries of suspension, poses little threat to our ship." Vex'hai replied. "Besides, think of what we could learn from him. Direct contact with human civilization, their culture, their knowledge. This could be the archaeological discovery of the millennium." 2 hours later, the salvage team returned with their prize. A sleek cylindrical pod covered in human script and warning labels. Through the frosted viewing window, they could make out the peaceful face of a human male, pale and still. Preserved in artificial sleep, Telara ran her scanners over the pods. Exterior. The preservation technology is more sophisticated than our records suggested. The power source has lasted 3 centuries with minimal degradation. What do the markings say? Vex'hai asked, studying the alien text covering the pod's surface. Linguist Zareth, who had been analyzing the ship's database, looked up from his translation matrix. Most of it appears to be standard cryogenic warnings, but there's something interesting here. His identification reads, Dr. Marcus Chun, Chief Librarian, Global Archive Project, Terra. A librarian? Mordak seemed almost amused. Not exactly. The dangerous human warrior I was expecting. Talara nodded as more data flowed across her screens. His profession is listed as Information Preservation Specialist. Appears to have been responsible for maintaining some kind of knowledge repository. Vex'hai felt a thrill of excitement. A human librarian, someone whose entire life had been dedicated to preserving information. If anyone could provide insights into human civilization, it would be him. Begin the revival process, she ordered. But slowly, I want full medical monitoring throughout. As Talara began preparing the complex procedure to safely awaken Dr. Marcus Chun from his 3-century sleep, none of the Nexari crew suspected that the quiet human librarian contained within his mind something far more valuable than historical knowledge. They thought they were reviving this simple keeper of books and records. They had no idea they were about to wake the guardian of humanity's most dangerous secrets, knowledge so powerful that entire civilizations had gone to war to possess it, and others had died to keep it hidden. The revival process took 18 hours. Dr. Marcus Chen awakened slowly, his eyelids fluttering as centuries of induced sleep gradually released their hold on his consciousness. The first thing he saw were the concerned faces of beings that definitely weren't human tall. Crystalline creatures with multiple eyes and graceful, elongated limbs. "Easy, Dr. Chen," Talara said softly, her voice modulated through the universal translator. "You're safe. You've been in cryogenic sleep for a very long time." Marcus tried to speak, but only managed a hoarse whisper. Where am I?" "You're aboard our research vessel," Commander Vex'hai explained, stepping into his field of vision. "We found your pod in the wreckage of your ship. I'm Commander Vex'hai of the Nexari Exploration Corps." The human's eyes widened as he took in her alien appearance, but rather than panic, he seemed to relax slightly. "Nexari," he repeated slowly. I think I remember reading about your species in the xenological databases. You're the archivists, aren't you?" Talara's antennae perked up with surprise. "You know of us?" Marcus managed a weak smile. "I was Earth's chief librarian. It was my job to know about everyone." He tried to sit up, but his muscles protested after centuries of disuse. "How long was I sleeping?" "Approximately 300 years, Vex'hai said gently. The news hit Marcus like a physical blow. His face went pale, and for a moment, the Nexari thought he might lose consciousness again. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Then they're all gone. Everyone I knew, everyone I loved." "I'm sorry," Talara said, her tone carrying genuine sympathy. "Earth was destroyed when your sun destabilized. As far as we know, you may be the last human alive." Marcus closed his eyes, processing this devastating information. When he opened them again, they were wet with tears, but his voice was steadier. "The evacuation ships? Did any make it?" "Some tried," Zareth, the linguist, answered from where he'd been quietly observing. "But human technology of that era wasn't advanced enough for long-distance space travel. Most ships were lost to various hazards." "We're so sorry for your loss," Vex'hai said. "But we want you to know you're welcome here for as long as you need. We're explorers and knowledge keepers, like yourself." Over the following days, Marcus slowly integrated into life aboard the Twilight Seeker. He was exactly what he appeared to be, a quiet, scholarly man who had dedicated his life to preserving information. He seemed almost fragile, both physically and emotionally, struggling with the reality that his entire species was extinct. The Nexari crew found him endearing rather than threatening. He spent hours in their archives, marveling at their collection methods and sharing stories about human library systems. His knowledge was impressive, but seemed entirely academic. He could discuss human literature, scientific achievements, and cultural practices with remarkable detail, but nothing that seemed particularly dangerous or world-changing. "He's exactly what we hoped to find," Talara told Vex'hai after Marcus had been aboard for a week. "A living repository of human knowledge." His insights into human civilization are invaluable for our historical records. Marcus proved helpful in small ways around the ship. He assisted Zareth with translating human texts they'd collected from other derelicts, helped organize their xenological databases using human cataloging systems, and even shared recipes for human food that the ship's food synthesizers could approximate. "I never imagined I'd be teaching aliens how to make coffee," Marcus said with a sad smile as he showed the crew how to program the synthesizers. It was the first time they'd seen him genuinely happy since his revival. Security Chief Mordak, who had initially been the most skeptical about reviving a human, found his concerns evaporating. "He's not exactly the unpredictable warrior our records suggested humans could be," he admitted to Vex'hai. "He seems more afraid of us than we should be of him." Marcus often spoke about his work on Earth with a mixture of pride and melancholy. The Global Archive Project was humanity's attempt to preserve everything we'd learned, he explained to Telara one day as they worked together in the ship's library. "We digitized every book, every scientific paper, every piece of art and music. We wanted to make sure that if something happened to Earth, human knowledge wouldn't die with us." "That's a noble goal," Telara replied. "Very similar to our own mission." "I just wish we'd had more time," Marcus said wistfully. "There was so much left to catalog, so many secrets we never got to preserve properly." The crew began to think of Marcus almost as a pet or a younger sibling to be protected. He seemed so vulnerable, so dependent on their kindness. When he struggled with the ship's gravity settings, they adjusted them for his comfort. When he had nightmares about Earth's destruction, Telara would sit with him and provide what comfort she could. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have died with everyone else," Marcus confessed to her one particularly difficult night. "What's the point of being the last human? All that knowledge, all those stories, what good are they if there's no one left to share them with?" "You share them with us," Telara reminded him gently. "Through you, your species lives on. That has to count for something." Marcus smiled sadly. "I suppose you're right. Though I'm probably not the human you'd want to preserve. I was never the bravest or strongest. Just someone who loved books more than adventure." What the Nexari didn't notice were the subtle inconsistencies in Marcus's behavior. They missed how he sometimes paused mid-sentence when discussing certain topics, as if catching himself before saying too much. They didn't see how his eyes would sharpen with intelligence that seemed far beyond that of a simple librarian when he thought no one was watching. They didn't realize that his questions about their ship's systems and navigation capabilities were more probing than they appeared. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Most importantly, they had no idea that when Marcus accessed their computer systems to help with translation work, he was also quietly mapping their entire database structure, learning about galactic politics, and identifying which civilizations might be interested in what he carried in his mind. Dr. Marcus Shun was exactly what he claimed to be, a librarian. But he was also something much more dangerous, and he was very carefully making sure his rescuers never suspected the truth. 3 weeks after Dr. Marcus Chin's revival, the contradictions began to pile up, small things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture that didn't quite match the humble librarian he claimed to be. It started with Chief Linguist Zareth noticing Marcus's translation speed. "Commander," he mentioned to Vex'hai during their weekly briefing, "Dr. Chun translated the entire Kepler colony archives yesterday. That's over 10,000 documents. He's been very helpful," Vex'hai agreed absently, reviewing navigation charts. "No, you don't understand," Zareth persisted. "It should have taken him weeks. Even with our translation matrix, processing that volume of archaic human dialects requires cross-referencing dozens of linguistic databases. But when I checked the logs, he barely accessed the translation protocols at all." Vex'hai looked up, interested now. Perhaps human linguists have different methods than we're familiar with. Zareth's expression remained troubled. Perhaps. But Commander, some of those documents were in languages that supposedly died out centuries before Dr. Qing was born. Yet he translated them perfectly, including cultural context and idioms. The second incident occurred when Marcus was helping Talara reorganize the medical database. She had been struggling with a corrupted file system for days when Marcus offered to assist. "I might be able to help," he said quietly. "Libraries deal with damaged records all the time." Talara watched in amazement as Marcus's fingers flew across the holographic interface, navigating through layers of corrupted code with impossible precision. Within an hour, he had not only repaired the database, but optimized it in ways that improved its efficiency by 30%. "How did you know to restructure the quantum indexing algorithms?" Talara asked, staring at the improved system. Marcus paused, seeming to realize he'd done something unexpected. "Oh well. Libraries have used similar. We had quantum storage systems on Earth too. Basic principles are the same, really." But Talara had checked the historical records. Earth's technology in Marcus's era was nowhere near quantum-level database management. She mentioned this to navigation specialist Kryth later that day. "He's been asking interesting questions about our navigation systems too," Kryth admitted. "Yesterday he wanted to know about our jump drive capabilities, fuel efficiency, and maximum range. When I asked why, he said he was just curious about how we'd traveled so far from Nexari space." "That seems reasonable," Talara replied, though she was beginning to feel uneasy. "It would be," Kryth agreed, except his questions were extremely technical. He asked about quantum entanglement stability during multidimensional jumps and whether our drives could handle parallel universe bleeding. "Those aren't casual curiosity questions, Talara. Those are questions an expert would ask." The most disturbing incident happened when Security Chief Mordak was updating the ship's defensive protocols. Marcus had been quietly reading in the corner of the bridge, appearing to pay no attention to the security briefing. But when Mordak mentioned a vulnerability in their shield harmonics, Marcus looked up sharply. "You might want to check the tertiary resonance frequency," Marcus said absently, then seemed to catch himself. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." Mordak stared at him. "What did you say about tertiary resonance?" Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Nothing really. It's just, well, on Earth we had similar energy systems, and we found that tertiary frequencies could create harmonic interference if they weren't properly calibrated." Mordak ran the diagnostic Marcus had suggested. The results showed a critical flaw in their shield matrix that could have left them vulnerable to specific types of energy weapons. It was a flaw so subtle that their best engineers had missed it for years. "Dr. Chun," Mordak said slowly, "Earth's defensive technology was centuries behind ours. How could you possibly know about harmonic resonance vulnerabilities in Nexari?" "Shield systems?" Marcus shifted nervously. I read a lot. The principles are universal, aren't they? Energy is energy." But Mordak wasn't satisfied. He began reviewing security recordings of Marcus's activities. What he found made him increasingly concerned. Late at night, when Marcus thought the crew was asleep, the human would access the ship's computer systems. The access log showed he was supposedly just reading historical files, but the pattern of his query suggested something else entirely. He was systematically mapping their database architecture, learning about galactic political structures, and researching the locations of various species' homeworlds. When Mordak brought his concerns to Commander Vex'hai, she initially dismissed them. "He's a scholar, Mordak. Of course he's curious about galactic civilization. He's trying to understand the universe he's woken up in." "Commander, he accessed classified files about the Veltar conflict yesterday," Mordak insisted. "Those files are restricted to senior officers only. When I asked him about it, he claimed he was researching human involvement in historical conflicts, Was there human involvement? No, Commander. The Veltar conflict happened 50 years after Earth's destruction. There were no humans alive to be involved. Vex'hai finally began to pay attention. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Dr. Marcus Chun is not the simple librarian he pretends to be, Mordak said grimly. His knowledge is too broad, too deep and too current. He knows things he shouldn't know and can do things he shouldn't be able to do. But he seems so harmless. Talara protested when Vex'hai called a senior staff meeting to discuss Mordak's concerns. He's gentle, scholarly, clearly still grieving for his lost world. That could all be an act, Mordak replied. Consider this. He's had access to our entire database for weeks. He knows our ship's capabilities, our crew complement, our mission, parameters, and our destination. If he wanted to harm us, he's had ample opportunity to gather intelligence. Zareth nodded reluctantly. The translation abilities are definitely beyond normal human capacity. And some of his questions about ancient languages seem designed to probe how much we know about certain historical events. What historical events? Vex'hai asked. The fall of the Etherian Empire, the disappearance of the Zephyrite civilization, the mysterious end of the First Galactic War, Zareth listed. All events that supposedly had no human involvement, yet he seemed very interested in our records of them. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. Marcus continued his quiet, helpful routine, but now the crew watched him with new eyes. The gentle librarian who had seemed so vulnerable and harmless was beginning to look like something else. Entirely. None of them yet suspected just how much Marcus was hiding, or that every question he'd asked, every system he'd accessed, and every piece of information he'd gathered was part of a careful plan. Dr. Marcus Chun was indeed a librarian, but he was the keeper of secrets that could topple governments, end wars, or start new ones, and he was slowly, methodically deciding which of those options would serve his purposes best. The crisis came without warning. As they always do, the Twilight Seeker was conducting a routine survey of an abandoned research station in the Helix Nebula when their sensors detected 3 massive ships emerging from hyperspace. The vessels were unlike anything in the Nexari. Databases sleek, predatory craft with weapon signatures that made Mordak's security protocols scream warnings across every display. Commander! Krith called out from his navigation station, his harmonic voice tight with alarm. Unknown vessels approaching at attack speed. They're not responding to any communication frequencies. Vex'hai moved swiftly to the command center, her crystalline form catching the red emergency lights now bathing the bridge. Identification? Negative on all known configurations, Talara reported from sensors. But their technology is extraordinary. Energy readings are off our scales. Marcus, who had been quietly working on translation projects in the corner of the bridge, suddenly looked up with an expression the crew had never seen before. Gone was the gentle, scholarly demeanor. His face had hardened into something cold and calculating. Those are Dominion ships, he said quietly. Every head on the bridge turned toward him. Zareth's translator matrix stuttered as he processed the unfamiliar term. Dominion? There's no civilization by that name in our databases. Marcus was already moving toward the sensor station, his previous hesitant movements replaced by swift, purposeful strides. That's because they don't want to be in your databases. Commander, you need to get us out of here immediately. Dr. Chun, how could you possibly? Vex'hai began, but Marcus cut her off. Those ships are equipped with dimensional disruptors and quantum cascade weapons. Your shields won't hold for more than 30 seconds against their firepower. He glanced at the tactical display with the expertise of someone who had studied military technology his entire life. They're here for me. Before anyone could respond, a transmission crackled through the ship's communication system. The voice that emerged was cold, mechanical, and spoke in perfect galactic standard. Nexari vessel, you are harboring a fugitive. of the Galactic Dominion. Surrender Dr. Marcus Chun immediately, or be destroyed. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the engines and the beeping of proximity alarms. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, the humble librarian was completely gone. In his place stood someone who radiated quiet authority and dangerous intelligence. "Commander Vex'hai," he said formally, "I apologize for the deception, but I need access to your ship's weapons and navigation systems, now." "You're not a librarian," Mordak said, his hand moving instinctively toward his sidearm. "Oh, I am a librarian," Marcus replied, moving to the central command console with fluid confidence. "But I'm also the former director of the Human Strategic Intelligence Archive." The Global Archive Project wasn't just about preserving human culture. It was about preserving human secrets, including information that certain galactic powers would kill to possess. The Dominion ships were closing fast. Warning klaxons filled the bridge as their weapon systems began charging. "What kind of secrets?" Vex'hai demanded, even as she watched Marcus's hands dance across her ship's control interface with impossible skill. "The location of the Etherean Empire's lost arsenal," Marcus said without looking up. "The real reason the Zephyrite civilization vanished overnight. The identity of the faction that actually ended the First Galactic War. The coordinates of 17 different ancient superweapons that various species have been hunting for millennia." Talara's antennae went rigid with shock. "Those are myths. Legends." "No," Marcus replied grimly. "They're carefully guarded secrets that I've spent 3 centuries memorizing. The Dominion has been hunting me since before Earth's destruction. They're the reason I was in that cryopod, not fleeing the solar collapse, but hiding from them." The lead Dominion ship fired a warning shot that passed close enough to the Twilight Seeker to make the hull groan under gravitational stress. 30 seconds to surrender the fugitive," came the mechanical voice. Marcus looked up from the controls, meeting Vex'hai's gaze directly. "Commander, I can get us out of this. But you need to trust me completely, and you need to understand that once you do, your ship and crew will be marked as enemies of the Dominion. They don't forgive, and they don't forget." "What are you?" Vex'hai asked. "I'm the keeper of every dangerous secret that ever existed," Marcus replied. "I'm the living memory of civilizations that died to protect their knowledge. And right now, I'm the only thing standing between galactic peace and a war that would consume every species in known space." The Dominion ships opened fire. Marcus's hands flew across the control systems faster than any organic being should have been capable of moving. The Twilight Seeker responded like it had been designed for combat instead of exploration, executing maneuvers that pushed its engines far beyond their rated capacity. "How are you doing this?" Kryth shouted over the roar of overstressed systems. "Because I helped design the theoretical frameworks for multidimensional navigation," Marcus called back, his voice now carrying the authority of someone accustomed to commanding respect. "Human technology wasn't primitive, it was classified. We were further advanced than anyone knew, but we kept our capabilities secret to avoid becoming targets." The ship spun through space in impossible patterns, avoiding weapon fire that should have been unavoidable. Marcus wasn't just piloting their vessel. He was anticipating the Dominion's tactics with the precision of someone who had studied their methods for decades. "The jump coordinates are locked," Marcus announced. "But I need to warn you where we're going will answer a lot of questions about what I really am. And once you know, there's no going back to thinking of me as just a harmless librarian." "Do it," Vex'hai ordered. The Twilight Seeker vanished into hyperspace just as the Dominion's most powerful weapons converged on their position, in the sudden quiet that followed their escape. Marcus slowly turned to face the Nexari crew. The mask of gentle scholarly helplessness was completely gone. In its place stood someone who radiated competence, authority, and secrets that could reshape the galaxy. "Now," he said quietly, Let me tell you who I really am, and why the most powerful forces in the universe want me dead. The emergency meeting in the Twilight Seeker's main conference chamber felt more like a trial than a briefing. Marcus sat alone at one end of the crystalline table while the entire senior crew faced him from the other end, their expressions ranging from betrayal to fascination to outright fear. Commander Vex'hai broke the tense silence. 300 years, Dr. Chun. 300 years of lies. Not lies, Marcus replied quietly. Omissions. Everything I told you about being a librarian was true. I just didn't mention what kind of library I was keeping. The kind that gets ships full of innocent people targeted by galactic superpowers, Security Chief Mordak said harshly. You've made us all fugitives. Marcus met his gaze steadily. The Dominion would have found me eventually, whether you were involved or not. At least this way, you have someone who knows how to fight them. Telara leaned forward, her antennae twitching with barely contained emotion. We trusted you. We brought you into our crew, shared our home with you, and you were gathering intelligence on us the entire time. I was protecting you, Marcus corrected. Every system I accessed, every file I reviewed, I was making sure your ship couldn't be used against you if the Dominion captured it. The defensive improvements I suggested weren't just helpful maintenance. They were preparations for this exact scenario. Zareth spoke up from his position near the wall displays. The languages you translated, the historical knowledge you demonstrated, how much of that was authentic scholarship versus strategic intelligence gathering? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then began speaking in a voice that carried the weight of centuries. The Human Strategic Intelligence Archive wasn't just a military database. It was a repository of every secret that had ever threatened galactic stability. We didn't just collect human knowledge, we preserved the dangerous truths that other civilizations had died to protect or kill to possess. He gestured to the star charts displayed on the chamber's walls. The Etherean Empire didn't fall to internal strife, as your histories claim. They were eliminated by the Dominion because they refused to surrender the location of the Void Engine's weapons, capable of erasing entire star systems from existence. The Zephyrite didn't vanish mysteriously. They escaped to a parallel dimension when they discovered the Dominion was coming for their reality manipulation technology. And the First Galactic War? Vex'hai asked, though she seemed afraid of the Konni. Answer. Wasn't ended by the Treaty of Cosmic Harmony, Marcus said grimly. It was ended when humanity secretly provided both sides with information that exposed the Dominion's plan to let the galaxy tear itself apart while they seized control of the aftermath. The peace treaty was signed because both factions realized they had a common enemy. Telara's voice was barely a whisper. How could humanity have known all this? Your species was barely spacefaring when most of these events occurred. Marcus smiled sadly. Because we weren't as primitive as everyone believed. Earth's government made a strategic decision early in our space age. Let the galaxy think we were young and harmless while we quietly built the most sophisticated intelligence network in known space. We studied every civilization, learned every secret, and carefully positioned ourselves as the galaxy's hidden guardians. Guardians or manipulators? Mordak challenged. Does it matter? Marcus replied. The result was 3 centuries of relative peace. The Dominion was contained, ancient. Weapons stayed hidden, and smaller conflicts were resolved through diplomacy instead of warfare. Krith spoke up from his position near the navigation controls. But Earth was destroyed. Your sun destabilized naturally, didn't it? Marcus's expression grew dark. The Dominion found us. They couldn't capture our archives directly, we'd hidden them too well, but they could eliminate the planet where we'd stored them. They destabilized our sun using quantum cascade technology, then hunted down the evacuation ships to ensure no knowledge survived. Except you, Vex'hai said. Except a few of us. I was the director of archives, responsible for memorizing the Most critical information in case our physical storage was compromised. My ship wasn't fleeing the solar collapse. It was carrying me to a deep space hiding location where I could wait until the Dominion stopped hunting. 300 years. Talara said. You've been hiding for 300 years. And I would have stayed hidden for 300 more, Marcus said, if your crew hadn't been kind enough to rescue what you thought was a broken old man. The chamber fell silent as the crew processed everything they'd learned. Finally, Commander. Vex'hai stood and began pacing, her crystalline form catching the light from the displays. Dr. Chun, she said formally, what you're telling us is that you possess information that could destabilize galactic civilization. Yes, and that the most powerful shadow organization in the galaxy wants you dead to protect their own interests. Yes. And that by helping you, we've made ourselves targets of this same organization. Yes, Marcus said quietly. I'm sorry for that. If I could undo your involvement, I would. Vex'hai stopped pacing and looked directly at him. But you can't. No, the Dominion doesn't forgive, and they don't forget. They'll hunt this ship and everyone on it until they're certain the knowledge I carry has died with me. The crew exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them through expressions and subtle gestures. Finally, Talara spoke. What? If we don't want to run? Marcus looked surprised. I'm sorry? You said humanity spent centuries acting as secret guardians of galactic peace, she continued. Someone needs to continue that work. The Nexari have always been keepers of knowledge, but we've been passive observers. Maybe it's time we became active protectors. Mordak nodded slowly. The Dominion has operated in shadow for too long. If they're willing to destroy entire species to protect their secrets, then maybe those secrets need to be exposed. You're talking about starting a war, Marcus warned. No, Vex'hai said firmly. We're talking about finishing one. The war the Dominion has been fighting in secret for centuries, while the rest of the galaxy remained ignorant. Marcus studied, each of their faces seeing determination where he'd expected fear. If you're serious about this, there's something else you need to know. I'm not the only survivor. There are others like me, scattered across the galaxy, each carrying pieces of the archive. If we can find them, if we can reunite the knowledge, we can bring down the Dominion, Krythe finished. Or die trying, Marcus said soberly. Vex'hai made her decision. Dr. Marcus Chun, former director of the Human Strategic Intelligence Archive, on behalf of the crew of the Twilight Seeker, I formally offer you our partnership in continuing humanity's mission as guardians of galactic peace. Marcus felt tears in his eyes for the second time since his awakening, but this time they were tears of hope rather than grief. I accept, he said. And I promise you this, the galaxy will be safer for your choice. 6 weeks after the encounter, with the Dominion fleet, the Twilight Seeker had been transformed. What had once been a peaceful exploration vessel now operated as something entirely different, part intelligence gathering ship, part mobile fortress, part beacon of hope for the scattered remnants of humanity's greatest secret. Marcus stood in the ship's newly configured command center, no longer the hesitant guest he'd pretended to be, but an equal partner in their mission. The changes went far beyond the upgraded defensive systems and modified sensor arrays. The crew themselves had evolved, their purpose shifting from passive observation to active protection of galactic stability. Contact established with Archive Station 7, announced Talara from her enhanced communication station. Dr. Sarah. Kim confirms she's still alive and has been maintaining the temporal mechanics archive in the Andromeda spiral. Marcus felt a surge of relief and hope. That's the third survivor we've located. How many more signals are you detecting? At least 4 more possibilities, Krythe reported from navigation, though 2 of them are in Dominion-controlled territory. Commander Vex'hai moved between the stations with new purpose, her crystalline Form now bearing subtle modifications, armor plating, and tactical enhancements that reflected their ship's new reality. Dr. Chun, what's our priority? Rescue the accessible survivors first, or attempt to extract the ones in immediate danger? It was a question that would have been unthinkable weeks ago, when Marcus was just a rescued refugee and Vex'hai commanded a simple research vessel. Now they spoke as equals, partners in a mission that could reshape galactic civilization. The accessible ones first, Marcus decided. We need to consolidate the archive fragments we can safely reach before attempting any high-risk extractions. Each piece of knowledge we recover makes us stronger for the next rescue. Security Chief Mordak approached with a tactical report, his previous suspicion now replaced by professional respect. Marcus, I've finished analyzing the Dominion pursuit patterns. They're not just hunting randomly, they're systematically searching sectors where archive survivors might have hidden. We have maybe 6 months before they narrow their search enough to threaten the survivors we haven't reached yet. Then we'd better move fast, Marcus replied. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. I want you all to understand what we're really doing here. We're not just rescuing individuals, we're rebuilding the galaxy's immune system. For 3 centuries, the Dominion has operated without opposition, manipulating conflicts, suppressing technological advancement, and eliminating anyone who threatened their control. The archive was the only force keeping them in check. Zareth looked up from his linguistic station, where he'd been working to decode the latest intelligence intercepts. The pattern is becoming clear now that we know what to look for. Wars that seemed random actually served Dominion interests. Scientific breakthroughs that mysteriously failed were probably sabotaged. Even the natural disasters that eliminated entire colonies were likely Dominion operations to remove populations that had discovered too much, Marcus finished grimly. The galaxy has been living under controlled oppression for centuries, but the control was so subtle that no one realized they weren't free. A new voice joined the conversation as Dr. Elena Vasquez materialized on the main holographic display. She was the second archive survivor they'd successfully contacted, now operating from a hidden base in the Outer Rim. Marcus, I've been analyzing the quantum signature data you sent, Elena said, her image flickering slightly due to the encrypted transmission. If we can coordinate our knowledge bases properly, we might be able to do more than just resist the Dominion. We might be able to expose them. What do you mean? Vex'hai asked. Elena's expression was grim but determined. The Dominion has spent centuries creating false historical records, covering up their manipulations, and erasing evidence of their existence. But they couldn't alter everything. Marcus has the location data, Sarah has the temporal mechanics to verify historical events, and I have the communication codes that can broadcast to every civilized world simultaneously. Marcus felt a chill of possibility, a galaxy-wide revelation. Every species learning the truth about their history, their wars, their natural disasters. It would cause chaos, Mordak warned. Initially, yes, Elena agreed. But it would also unite them against their common oppressor. The Dominion's power comes from operating in shadow. Expose them to the light, and their influence crumbles. Talara's antennae were twitching with excitement. It's brilliant. Instead of fighting a secret war, we make it impossible for them to stay secret. The risks are enormous, Vex'hai said thoughtfully. If we fail, we don't just lose our own lives. We lose the last chance the galaxy has to learn the truth. Marcus nodded soberly. But if we succeed, we free every civilization in known space from centuries of manipulation and control. The bridge fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what they were considering. Finally, Marcus spoke again. I've spent 300 years carrying these secrets alone, hiding in the dark while the galaxy suffered under Dominion influence. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of watching civilizations dance to someone else's manipulations while believing They're free. He looked around at the crew that had become his family, his partners, his hope for the future. You've all chosen to risk everything to continue humanity's mission as guardians. I'm asking you to take one more step. Help me turn this ship into the spark that ignites galactic liberation. Commander Vex'hai stood straighter, her crystalline form catching the light from the displays. Dr. Marcus Chin, the Nexari have spent millennia preserving knowledge. It's time we helped that knowledge serve its true purpose, freeing minds and exposing truth. The Twilight Seeker is yours to command, she continued formally. Where do we begin? Marcus smiled, not the sad, hesitant expression they'd grown accustomed to, but something fierce and determined. We begin by sending a message to archive survivors across the galaxy. The library is reopening, and this time we're checking out some very dangerous books. As the ship changed course toward the Helix Nebula, where their next rescue target waited, none of them knew that their actions were already being felt across the galaxy. Dominion agents were reporting unusual communication patterns, ancient monitoring. Stations were detecting quantum signatures they hadn't seen in centuries. And in the deepest archives of dozens of civilizations, automated systems were beginning to unlock files that had been sealed for generations. The quiet librarian, they'd awakened from his centuries-long sleep, had kept his promise. The galaxy was indeed becoming safer, but first, it was about to become very, very dangerous. Dr. Marcus Chen, last keeper of humanity's greatest secrets, was finally ready to share them with the universe. And the universe would never be the same. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.